difficulties with the site. I know that it was the site now because it worked. So we're happy.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. We're going to learn a little bit about you today and your testimony, learn about how God has used your backstory to actually help a ton of people with hope. And when I talked to you before, you said that was the number one reason why you wanted to do the show, is just give people hope. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's never too late. And God is patient.
Yeah.
I will tell you, God is patient. And he was very patient with me. Yes. Yeah.
Well, okay. Let's dive into the God is Awesome podcast here then. Tell me a little bit about your life before. Like when did God really show up? You knew he was awesome for the first time. He changed you from the inside out. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I had done my testimony for Morning Joy Bible Study a couple of years ago now. And I entitled it God Calling. I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, with firstborn parents from Poland. And it was a hard life. We didn't have a lot of money. They were uneducated. My father quit school at seven, when he was in his seventh year in grammar school. Had to go to work and earn some money for my grandmother, his mother, and his sister, who she had lost her husband. Her husband had died, and back then they didn't have welfare. They didn't have anything that would help her. So she worked in the tobacco fields in the summertime to earn money. Believe it or not, that's hard work. And my father did odd jobs here and there, and yeah, it was tough. It was a tough life for them. But they met one another when, I don't know, I think my mother was 18 or 19, living on a farm. She had been, she did graduate from high school, but she wasn't able to do much work. She did some housekeeping for people, and then she earned some money to help my grandmother and her 10 children.
Wow, 10 children.
Yeah, 10 kids. Yeah, she had 14, but 4 died early on in life. So my parents were just good, honest workers. They were hard workers. We were taught to be polite, to listen to our elders. They sent us to my brother and I, who was 7 years older than I am, died about 4 years ago now.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. He lived with me for the last year of his life, and I'm so grateful that I could have him with me. But he was 7 years older than I, and we both went to parochial school, Catholic school. You would think that I would know about the Bible. I knew nothing about the Bible.
Oh man.
Yeah, nothing. I knew of God. I knew of Jesus, but I never knew and had a relationship. I grew up feeling like I was guilty all the time, and that God was always watching and judging me. And so I, in turn, turned out to be a rebellious child. I smoked my first cigarette when I was 10 years old.
Wow.
I lost my virginity when I was 13.
Oh.
I was raped when I was 14. But I look back and I say, that's not who I am. Not now. That's not who I am. And so it was trying, and I feel like I was kind of I wasn't really present in the world, and then my mother died when I was 16. She had a cerebral hemorrhage.
So out of nowhere, it wasn't anything you were expecting. It was just, especially at that time, I mean, just out of nowhere. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she had been sick. She had high blood pressure. But
Okay.
back then, they didn't monitor it the way they do now. We're talking about 60 years ago. So she died the day after Easter,
Wow. This is a
which is, which is always a time for me that, it's a remembering day, and it brings back memories of, because I grew to really know her when she had had a heart attack and she was in the hospital for a week, and I would go to see her, and we would talk and really began to connect with one another. But I didn't mourn my mother. I'm sure I was in shock. I didn't mourn my mother until I was 35.
wow. Oh
Yeah,
man.
wasn't until then. I was in therapy, trying to get my life together. So I always knew God was with me,
Hmm.
but I didn't know Him, and I would. I was married for 12 years to a man and in a very difficult relationship. And I used to bargain with God.
Yeah.
If
We
you
all
do this,
I think.
I will do this. Or I promise to do this if you do this. And of course, that doesn't work.
No.
Um,
Oh, I think we lost her. Uh, let's see if she'll come back here. While we're waiting, hey, just for those of you that are watching, it's pretty difficult to go through something like that and all those kind of things and think, man, where is it that God plays a role in this? And so, for those of you that are watching, I just want you to say that Joyce, in that time, knew that God was with her, even in the midst of all of that. So, pretty crazy in order to know that truth, even in the midst of it. Um, let's see. She's trying to come back here. Not quite sure what to do. This is just the Jason show right now. I'm sorry for those of you. Uh, but I have some people in the comments. Thanks for sharing to Joyce. We'll get more when she comes back here. Also, this is so awesome. Don't know you, Joyce, but completely relate to you. Um, there's just people that are going through some stuff, and that's tough. Blessed Easter to all of you. I agree. Oh, here we go. Joyce, no problem. You just when you rewatch this video, you can see my like panic stalling for the last. So I'm going to show you in the stream. There we go. You're back.
oh, right.
Oh,
Great. 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 Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
So uh,
So,
sorry for that.
oh,
Um,
no. I did something, I'm sure. Uh,
no,
I,
it's okay. Here's where we were. You talked about a couple things that I want to ask you questions about. I didn't want to interrupt, but first, you were talking about the the fact that you might have known about God but didn't know God. For those of us that are watching that maybe don't understand what it's like to know about God, like a historical figure or someone that in history hates you. I guess that's how the whole process is taught. How do you go from that to having a personal relationship? What happened?
well, I started, it started with, um, I joined a church, a congregational church in Granby, Connecticut. I started going to that church, and then we made friends and would play bridge, and um, one of the couples um, we played bridge with lived in a different town, but she asked if I would be willing. She went on this youth camp out. Um, to Star Island. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's Star Island off the coast of New Hampshire. It's a rock, very very rustic, but they would have a week long conference for children, teens from age just entering high school to just graduating from high school. And we would have, it was a religious education program. And I was on staff of 7 with
Hmm.
about 140 kids.
Wow.
And um, I just, I did it for 6 or 7 years, one week at a, one week a year during the month of August. It was awesome. And I had talked to one of the staffers, one of the a member of our staff team who was a pastor, and we were just talking about how much I got out of that, and how much it meant to me, and how good I felt when I was doing this work. And he told his story, and his story was that he was a fairly new pastor. He was a stockbroker, and he had a
Wow.
family. He had a family, and I was probably in my early 30s at that time. And he said it's never too late. He said he had talked to his wife, and his wife, he told her that he was not happy. Being a stockbroker, he had a lot of money, but that wasn't what he wanted to do. And so he went to divinity school and became a pastor, and his life changed. And he told me, he really gave me hope. And he said, it's never too late. So I started, I went and I got my, now this was several years later, that I finally decided to do it, but I got my master's degree, and I started doing counseling.
Wow.
And I still didn't have a relationship with God, although I developed breast cancer when in 1995,
Wow.
and I developed colon cancer in 2008.
Wow.
And Jason, even then, I had I had faith that I would be okay. Still not really. I knew God was there, but didn't really know him. And and I just had faith, and I would joke when I'd go into the doctor's office, and I would do, someone who hadn't seen me before, and I tell them that I'm a cancer survivor times two, and they'd look at me, and I said, God isn't finished with me yet. And somehow I believed that, but I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. you know, it wasn't until I joined. Actually, it was a friend, and that was this whole divine intervention, I believe. Joe Lucas. I don't know if you remember, if you knew
Yeah.
Joe Lucas.
And you
All
need
right,
it now.
Benedita's now.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was cleaning a house of a friend of mine, and I asked her if she would clean for me, and she said she couldn't. She was too busy. She couldn't do that. I kept asking her. I kept asking. She said, Joyce, you wouldn't take no for an answer. All right. So
Sounds like her.
as yeah, pardon me.
Oh, that sounds like her.
Yeah. Joyce,
I can
you
picture it.
just wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
So she started cleaning for me, and we became friends. And she said, "Do you want to come to church with me?"
Hmm.
I hadn't thought about it. My brother had died, um, and I thought, you know what? I think maybe I will. All right. Well, that was in the old church. The old
Sure. When it was still just one small little building. And
one small little building. Yep. And I sat there and listened to Pastor Scott, and I welled up with tears because it was so meaningful for me.
hmm.
And he talked about the Bible being good news. I never believed and knew that the Bible was good news. I thought it was hell and damnation.
Yeah. It was all bad news growing up.
All bad news, And so then she'd ask me again, and I'd go, and then I'd go. And then she said, I'm going to join Bible study. You want to join? You want to come with me? Well, I knew nothing about the Bible. So here I went, to Grace's Morning Joy Bible study. And I continued to go to church. And all I knew was that it felt so good. And I was reading the Bible. And I would walk outside. Well, let me tell you a little tidbit of this.
Sure.
During the time that I was getting divorced from this man that I was married to for 12 years, um, I lived in the country, and I would always see flocks of birds flying in a V. And I would during the time that I was getting divorced, because I really didn't want to get divorced, but I just couldn't live that way any longer. I would look up in the sky and just saw the magnificence of nature and
Wow.
what God gives us. And I would begin to cry. And so when I I started to go to the sunlight. I then was walk Biscuit, my dog. All right, she's since passed, but I would walk, and when I walked, I would pray, and I looked up in the sky and I saw some Canada geese in a V, and I started crying.
Hmm.
I thought, he has always, always, always been with me, and I never knew it.
Wow.
It was that, how Scott talks about the aha moment?
Yeah.
Well, that was the aha moment.
Was a flock of geese.
A flock of geese. And, you know, let me tell you something. It was 70 years, 70 years that he waited for me.
Wow. So on that rock, when he said it's never too late, you didn't know it was going to be 70 years in, and God still loves you with the just tenacity of as much as you could ever imagine and more.
And more and more. He shows his love to me every moment of every day.
Yeah.
He just does, and um I'm doing things for Morning Joy now that I never dreamt of doing. I'm writing these notes every week to our members, trying to give them encouragement, some skills to cope with staying isolated during these times.
Real quick before you keep going, I've actually seen what you sent, which is awesome, but people watching might not know. So just to fill in the gap here, which I think is so unbelievably important, that you were working in therapy, working as a therapist, right?
Yes.
Helping people cope with the various things, which is amazing. I mean, listening to the story of how circumstance found you throughout this whole thing, and God was with you through a rape, through cancer twice, through you losing your mom and losing your brother. God was with you that whole time,
Yes.
and now, so you have that background. You're helping people now through therapy. What happens that transitions you to use what you do in therapy for God and respond to what He's done for you through service? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I started doing a support group, an encouragement and support group, once a month for our Morning Joy members.
Okay.
And um, and Pat Teskey has been
Love
a,
it.
a real rock for me. She's just such a wonderful woman. We're good friends, and she started coming, and so she knows the Bible back inside and out, but I don't. I still don't. But I used my skills as as a psychotherapist and bringing that to being grounded in God's love.
Hmm.
So it's it's the, you know, as women, we are trained, and it's in our nature to be caregivers,
Hmm.
but it's different to do something and serve out of feeling of obligation or need or whatever,
Or wiring.
wiring, and then to do it with a loving heart.
Yeah, that's cool.
and
So
that's and that's what I'm trying to do. It's serving him as I serve others with a loving heart, because I'll tell you, that group that I do, and when I do counseling here for some women in Morning Joy, it's I feel, sometimes I feel like a fraud because I'm getting so much out of it.
yeah, isn't that funny about service in general? It's like I read this book, and I won't go through all of the details, but it's by a guy named Simon Sinek. And there's these pleasure hormones that happen in your body that are released, these chemicals. And there's one called oxytocin, and
Oh yes.
it's the only pleasure chemical that it's released when you help someone. It's released when you're helped, and it's the only one that's also released when you see someone helping someone else. So
Yes.
it's like God wired and created us in this way that that's encouraging us to have that loving heart, encouraging us chemically to love each other and want to help. And
Yeah.
so I always find it so funny too that it's like I'm doing this on a missions trip as an example. I'm building something for you, but or talking to you about the gospel, but I'm getting so much that God is giving to me through that. It's insane. It almost seems selfish. How is it?
It does. That's why
Yeah,
sometimes I feel like a fraud because I'm getting so much out of it.
yeah. But you're
Yeah.
not. You were wired that way. You were created to get something out of it.
Yeah. It's just wonderful. And you, I look at these times right now where people have so much anxiety and so much fear. If only they could put their trust and faith in God and know how much he loves us, how much
Wow.
he loves me, and that I'm going to be okay no matter what.
Hmm.
He's in charge of this. He's in charge.
Wow. Coming from someone that's gone through so much, that is so powerful. That's our God is awesome t-shirt moment. We keep bringing it back. That's the t-shirt moment for this one. Man, to think that in the midst of all of the course of your life, you can still look at something like this, and maybe that's led to it, where you can just say, man, God's in control. There's nothing there's nothing that can separate me from him. There's nothing that can change the way he feels about me. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Absolutely. And I know that. I know that as I sit here, and I know that in my heart, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. He he waited 70 years for me.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you a question I didn't get to ask you before. Kind of going back a little bit. How has becoming a Christian affected your? This is getting deep. Okay. How has it affected your take on how you provide therapy to somebody? How you help them process? Has that adjusted your process at all? Knowing the truth of who God is, or is that and how so? I'm just curious.
Huh, that's a good question. Well, it's more about staying in the moment, which is different than some of the deep therapy work that I used to do. Um,
Hmm.
that it's not the past that you need to worry about. It's not the future that you need to worry about, because nobody lived a day longer if by worrying.
Yeah. Right. There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah, and it's in the moment, and to allow your heart to open and receive God's love. It's about surrendering to his love, to know in your heart that God loves you more than anything that you can imagine. And so that piece comes in when I'm working with people, when they start talking about this or that. I said, you know what? You're not in control of this. God's in control. You
Right.
have to give it to him.
You just really you really opened my eyes to something right there that's so beautiful. I think of the book of James where it says, he's talking about, who are you that says, I'm going to go from this city to the next, or I'm going to do this or that, when you don't have any control over tomorrow. Sometimes we focus so much in the Christian faith on what's coming. Specifically, we talk, hey, let's look forward to the glories of heaven, which are amazing. I'm not going to underplay heaven here. Or sometimes we focus so much on, hey, look where God has brought you from. And I feel like I'm guilty of focusing so much on those two things. Then I pair that with your idea earlier about just sitting in your identity of who you are now and how God loves you now as a child of God. As a it says in the Bible, co-heir with Christ. How crazy is that? Uh, uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that is such a blessing to me to just focus on the present. And I think right now, for those of you that are watching this 10 years in the future, I'm being presumptuous. Right now,
I'm
we're in
willing.
the coronavirus time, so some of us are quarantined, can't leave our house. So, and I think that's what it's done, is made it focus really on the present. And I think that's a
Absolutely.
blessing, not a curse, right?
Absolutely. Oh, yes, it is a blessing. I love the fact that I don't have to go someplace. And I
Hmm.
don't have, I'm home. I'm enjoying my time at home. I read the Bible more. I'm doing other things and I talk to God all the time. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I don't feel lonely.
Huh.
I know he's with me. I know he's with me. Yeah, yeah. And I had said to Scott once that after I was saved, I said to him, I said, nothing in my life has changed. All of the, all of the, all of everything, money worries, health worries, is all, nothing, none of that has changed. But I said, you know what? Everything has
Oh,
changed.
wow. T-shirt times
Ev-
two.
Pardon me?
I said that's your T-shirt times two. That's awesome. Nothing has changed, but everything has changed.
Everything.
And you're
It's,
talking about, what I love about that is sometimes there's this movement right now, especially in Christianity, that says, well, if you love God hard enough, all your problems are going to go away. He's not going to let anything happen to you ever bad. It'll always be good. I don't know. I don't think the Apostle Paul, who was in chains and had a constant thorn, I don't think he felt like that. Uh,
right.
but
That's right.
so what you're saying is that the circumstance of your life did not change,
Correct.
but
Correct.
how you interact with that, how you take that in, the filter, the grid through which you understand life has totally changed. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Joy,
Yeah.
you're killing it.
Oh,
That's so great.
oh, thank you.
Oh man, awesome.
Yeah, life is good. Life is truly, truly a blessing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
this was awesome. We're right up at our half-hour mark. That went quick, went fast. Uh,
Did it did?
it was awesome.
Yeah.
Real quick, just to sum up, uh, is there anything else you wanted to add, or or more and? Can you tell me why you think God is awesome? That's how we end the show. Is tell that the person that's featured in the show says why God is awesome. So any of those two things, something that you want to share, or
Well, all you have to do is look outside. Look outside and see the beauty that He has created for us.
wow.
He loves us so much. He gave His Son. He sent His Son down to die for me, for you. That I cannot comprehend how much he has to love me to do that. It's, I cry with joy and gratitude
Hmm.
because he loves me so much that he sent his son down to die for me, to forgive my sins. All the sins. I mean, that's yeah. I don't want to
God
repeat that
takes
part,
on human
and
flesh.
even the sins of that today. I'm still, there are things that I worry about sometimes, and I think, no, I got to give that up. It's God's in control. I'm not in control, But the joy and the beauty, of the birds that sing in the morning,
Hmm.
the breeze that comes across your face that you can't see that breeze, but he's there.
Yeah. Yep. I
Yeah.
love that. That is like perfect. God is awesome. I love that the geese are what changed your mind. And then when you understand still to this day, the thing that is awesome, general revelation, is nature, right? That you can just see. I mean, I was talking with my daughter yesterday about plants and photosynthesis, and she's 5, so she's about
Yeah.
and so all these kind of things, and just how nature is just so independent working, is just like screams, it all cries out glory to God. And I agree with that. I love that. Joyce, thanks so much for being on the show. You've been awesome. Just so many t-shirt moments on this episode. So thankful for you. Thank you for showing us how God is awesome, and we'll catch up. Those of you, remember, if you want to see any other of the past shows, you can scroll back in the Facebook family feed. And also, if you want to be on the show, link to the picture of Joyce and her dog earlier in this feed.
Oh,
Yeah, that's in there.
okay.
You can click the link and be on the show. So God bless you. Thank you so much, Joyce. You've really blessed me. God has worked through you. I hope you felt the joy of that, like we talked about soon. And again, God is awesome. See you next time.
God is awesome. Thank you, Jason. Keep up
Thank
your good
you.
work.
You too.
Okay.